What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 44 Vision Podcast. I am your host, Khaled Abdallah, and I'm joined today once again by my fellow host, Salman Huck. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Yo, what's up, man?
Not much. Today's topic is the look back at the 2024 NFL Draft. So as you recall, a couple weeks back, we did a mock draft of the first round with me and Salman trading picks back and forth. And in today's episode, we're basically going to take a look back at how we did compared to the actual results of the first round. One thing to note is that in our mock, we just decided to keep things simple. We didn't do any trades just because we wouldn't be able to keep track of all that. So obviously in real life, there were plenty of trades. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the pick that we mocked at each position, where the guy actually ended up getting drafted. See, maybe we didn't have the right grade on him. And then we'll talk about the actual pick and just about, maybe why this guy may have dropped, why they picked another player instead. But I think you guys get the gist. So we'll just be keeping track and see how we did in our draft. So we'll start with the top four, which we were pretty close on. So I'll start with mine. I was lucky enough to get the first pick. And, we went with Caleb Williams. And there was very little debate, maybe a little bit of debate about what Chicago was going to do. I think it was more so, how could they screw this up in a way, just because they're the Bears, right? And people that said maybe they'll trade down, maybe they'll draft Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, once Justin Fields was gone, it was pretty much a done deal. But I think there was a lot of additional drama around it because of Caleb Williams and his painted nails and his lip gloss and some of the other
And his pink purse.
Yeah, the pink phone case, just whatever random bullshit that fans would find to kind of nitpick this guy. So, I mean, not much to discuss on him, but I think maybe just one thing I want to ask you is, like, what do you think are some like realistic expectations for him in his first year with this team?
Yeah, I think people are going to get a little bit ahead of themselves and be like, oh, he's going to be Pat Mahomes, right? Like, don't expect that yet. Maybe 3-4 years down the line, you could expect him Pat Mahomes type production. But I think realistically, he just has to get comfortable. He could probably throw for like 3,500 yards, rush like, have a pretty solid rookie season because he has those wide receivers. So 3,500 yards. Let's not say 20 touchdowns.
20 touchdowns. Okay.
I'm on the passing touchdowns. I'll give him like another 10 rushing touchdowns. He's got that ability.
Okay.
He's got that ability. So, I mean, and that would be like, I would say that's lofty expectation still. Like even that's maybe a little lofty, but he has the receivers, he has the offense to do it. So he should succeed. He shouldn't be like, oh, Caleb Williams, like what the hell is he doing? He's only throwing for like 1,200 yards and like 30 interceptions or something like that. He shouldn't be doing that, right? But I mean, I think it's reasonable to give him like 3,000 yards and like 500 plus rushing yards.
So I'm kind of bullish on this guy, man. I think, okay, he's not Mahomes, obviously, but he's going into a Mahomes-like situation, if you know what I'm saying. Yep. Like maybe not the same level of coaching staff, or obviously not the same level of coaching staff, but it was Mahomes got drafted, I think, 10th overall, but the Chiefs were in the late teens. So they had a good team. They were already a playoff team. They probably won the AFC West the year before. Chicago's not quite that level, but they're not as bad as the usual teams that are picking number one overall. They probably would have been like picking in the mid-teens if Justin Fields played the whole year. So he has a good team around him. They have a pretty solid defense. They came on strong at the end of the year. Got a ton of weapons. So I'm thinking he's going to do what no Bears quarterback has ever done and throw for 4,000 yards. And 30 touchdowns, right, I think. I mean, it's 18 games, right? Or whatever, 17 games.
17 games, yeah.
If you do the math.
It's heading to 18.
Yeah. I think he's just going to be throwing the ball around. I mean, I think he'll probably throw a decent amount of interceptions as well because he's that kind of gunslinger type. But yeah, man, I'm high on this guy.
I think what CJ Stroud did this year is probably realistic for what Caleb Williams could do.
Yeah, and he has probably better weapons than CJ Stroud.
Yeah, on paper for sure.
Yeah. All right, over to you for the second pick.
Yeah, so second pick for the Commanders. I thought they were going Drake May. They went Jaden Daniels. I mean, not really a surprise. Like it was truly, I think 50, at least in what everyone knew was it's either Drake May or Jaden Daniels. Like it was a quarterback. just wasn't sure which one, but it sounded like they really like Jaden Daniels. He's getting RG3 comps. Like, oh, it's like we took RG3 again, right? So it made sense. Like, not a big shocker. And as you see, Drake May went number 3 to the Patriots, so it's not like he fell off that far off. So it's just
Exactly.
one big difference. Yeah. So I mean, it was like really like I don't know what the Patriots would have done if Drake May wasn't there at 3. It sounds like maybe they
Probably
wouldn't
would
have gone Jaden Daniels. Yeah.
they probably would have drafted Jay Daniels.
You think so?
One thing
Okay.
we should have done before our mocks was check like FanDuel, because
Yeah.
FanDuel had they basically had Jaden Daniels at like minus 300 to be the second overall pick. So there's probably
wow.
like some whispers and stuff. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
do that. I did it after, and I was like, oh, I guess they are for sure taking Jaden Daniels over Drake May, but I don't think you can go wrong with either guy. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty high on Jaden Daniels. I wish he was a Raider, but
I mean, the
you know,
rumors were Raiders were going to try and trade up if he fell past the Patriots.
I know. We'll come back to that when we get to the
We'll come
Raiders
back to
on,
it. We'll come
on
back
what
to it.
happened exactly. But yeah, I'm super high on him, and obviously because I had him going third to the New England Patriots, but obviously we just flip flopped those two guys again. Probably should have checked FanDuel. In terms of Drake May, I didn't realize how big he was. He's like Josh Allen, Justin Herbert type, where he's like 6'5", 240, where Jaden Daniels, I think, like 6'3", 215, 210.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
Caleb Williams is like 6'1", 6'2", and
Yeah,
I think he's also
on the
like
shorter
210.
side. Yeah.
So Drake May is massive. I think it makes sense for like that offense, that division, that cold weather. You want this like big, gigantic quarterback that's going to run people over if he has to. The only problem is that this offense sucks. They had hella issues last year. No real weapons. I mean, they drafted some guys, but I think the first two guys are probably going to start right away, or for sure going to start right away. I think even Jaden Daniels, but I think Drake May, I think they're going to start Jacoby Brissett. They'll do like the Tua thing where they start Jacoby for the first 5-6 weeks. But yeah, we were basically 3 for 3 on this one. We
basically,
checked FanDuel.
It just flip. Yeah, it just flip flopped a little bit here.
Yeah. All right, over to you for the fourth pick.
Yeah, even this fourth pick, no brainer. I mean, people were trying to like, oh, Cardinals are going to trade back. Someone's going to trade up for JJ McCarthy. No, Cardinals stayed, took the guy who's going to be basically their next Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is that's what he is. He's going to be that. He's a little of an interesting guy. Like apparently he's like not signing the NFLPA like licensing deals and stuff like that. He's doing some interesting things. Like he wasn't doing like draft visits. He wasn't working out. Like he's a little. This personality is a little peculiar. Like what we're seeing out of him.
I think it's because his dad. But do you remember in the 90s where it was like all the NBA games? Jordan was never in the NBA games.
You couldn't play with Jordan, yeah, because he never signed the deals.
Yeah, it was like the player would be like Martin Johnson, number 99.
Or it would just be 99. Like you wouldn't even have a name.
Exactly. Player name. And it'd be, everybody knows it's Michael, but he didn't have the number. And I never knew why that was as a kid. I was like, this is so frustrating. Why isn't this the case? And it's because he didn't sign the NBA PA licensing agreement. And I guess he's doing the same thing. So you can't even buy his jersey.
Yeah, you can't buy his jersey.
So
no, I think he just cut a deal with Fanatics separately, like outside of the NFLPA. So maybe he might be there. So I don't know. He's an interesting guy. So we'll see. Hopefully he's not too diva-ish and he keeps his head down, focuses on the football.
Yeah. I think he will. He just doesn't talk much. And he's all about the business, literally like on and off the field, which is good. I don't think he's
like the football version of Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, he's not the type that's gonna. Well, hopefully he's not as like disruptive as Kawhi with Uncle Dennis and all that. But it's more just like I'm about my paper, I'm about my business. I'm gonna, be the best receiver in the NFL at some point, and I'm also gonna be, compensated handsomely because I know my worth, kind of thing. So we'll see. All right, now we'll jump into the next 4 picks. So I was tasked with drafting for my the hated Los Angeles Chargers, and this one again we were spot on. We talked about this offense with the Jim Harbaugh model of trying to be bullies. Basically, we're gonna run it down your throat, we're gonna beat you up, we're gonna beef up both sides of the trenches, all that stuff. Some people had them taking a receiver this early, some people had them taking Brock Bowers this early, but my thought the whole time was they're going to go out and get the best possible offensive lineman for Justin Herbert because he's been hurt past couple years, whether it's a rib injury or hand injury. So like, we need to protect this guy. We need to run the ball. And that's exactly what they did. They took Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, who is, I think, the consensus best tackle, best offensive lineman in this draft. He's probably going to play right tackle for them, but maybe he can play left and they switch Rashawn Slater. I don't know what they're going to do, but it doesn't really matter. They have two like franchise caliber bookend tackles, and that's exactly what you want to do for he's not super young anymore, but youngish quarterback. But yeah, I think we were both aligned on this pick.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, it just makes sense, right? Like Jim Harbaugh doesn't need wide receivers. He's just gonna run the ball down your throat, so he'll be fine.
Yeah, and they drafted receiver, in the second round.
Yeah, later.
We talked about this being a pretty deep receiver draft anyway, so they went out and did it. And speaking of receivers, let's talk about the 6th overall pick.
Yeah, another pick we hit on over here with Malik Neighbors. It just never made sense, all this quarterback talk to the Giants. People are like, they're going to take J.J. McCarthy. They're considering maybe Michael Fangs. But, it just made sense. They need weapons. Daniel Jones hasn't had weapons. Like, his best weapon has always been Saquon Barkley. So maybe now he finally gets a chance to have some good wide receivers to throw to here. And I think it just made a lot of sense here for the Giants.
They love LSU wide receivers, man. Maybe he's the next Odell Beckham. I think they had Sterling Shepard at one point. I don't know if he's still on the team. But yeah, maybe LSU is wide receiver U. Justin Jefferson. We got Jamar Chase.
Yeah. Oh, man. Maybe.
For a while, it was like DBU with, Tyrann Mathieu, Ryan Clark. Just can't go wrong. Picking either a receiver or a DB. I think they got two receivers in the first round this year. But yeah, so about my pick, the next pick was the Tennessee Titans, 7th overall. I had them picking Rome Odunze, but that was completely my fault. So Rome Odunze ends up going 9th to Chicago. I will admit fault here. When we did the pod, I forgot that they had given Calvin Ridley $100 million. And you called me out on it, but I didn't want to edit the podcast.
You're like, nope, still rolling with this.
Yeah, so I rolled with it. But the smart pick would have been a offensive lineman, an offensive tackle, which is what they did. They ended up taking J.C. Latham out of Alabama, who is the consensus number 2 offensive lineman, offensive tackle in this class. And it just makes sense. You got same reasoning that you want to protect Justin Herbert. You want to do the same thing with Will Levis, who is not as enticing of a prospect as Justin Herbert, but you also want to see what he can do with a better team around him, with an offensive-minded head coach. Let's see what this guy can do. Let's keep him upright, give him some weapons, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I think that made sense that they were targeting a lineman. But the next one, we couldn't have been way more off. I don't think anyone saw this coming.
Yeah, we might spend an hour on this pick.
Yeah, we probably could. So I had the Falcons taking Dallas Turner. He ended up going 17 to Minnesota, who jumped up to get him. But their actual pick was Michael Penix Jr. So, yikes. Well, I don't know what the Falcons are doing. You signed Kirk Cousins to this big money deal. I know he's coming off an Achilles injury, but to spend a top 10 pick on another quarterback after signing a quarterback to some big money, it's pretty perplexing. Like, maybe it works out all in the end. Like, oh, great, maybe Kirk Cousins only has a year or two left in the tank, but it just didn't make sense to spend a top 10 pick on a guy that, some people were saying he's maybe a second round prospect, right? Maybe end a late first round prospect. And you spend a top 10 pick on this guy who's not even going to start for you. And he's an older guy. Like I think he's like 24, 25, right?
I think, yes. A lot of the quarterbacks in this class are older. Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix.
I think
Bo
a lot
Nix.
a lot of this draft class is older just because I think of that COVID year.
True. They all had that extra year of eligibility. And yeah, all these quarterbacks are like 24. They're all born year 2000, which is crazy to think about. They're so old.
Yeah.
I'll start with like the reasoning that has been, explained after the fact is, okay, you signed Kirk Cousins to this quote unquote 4-year deal, put that in air quotes, for like $150 million. Only the first 2 years are guaranteed, right? Or like fully guaranteed. So I think it's like 100 million of the 150 is guaranteed those first 2 years. So you're thinking, all right, we'll draft this kid. because hopefully we won't be picking in the top 10 the next 2 years with Kirk Cousins. So we get this quarterback that's going to help us in 2 years or 3 years, because that's when he's supposed to start. He's also an insurance policy in case Kirk Cousins does go down and he's not able to come back. All that is fine, sure. But for the reasons that you mentioned, he's older, he's 24, he's going to be, 27, 28 by the time he's starting. Like, that doesn't make sense logically. And the way they're operating, it's like they're playing like fantasy football or
Yeah.
Madden franchise mode. Like, I get the logic. The logic is sound if that's the way that you're playing it. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense
Right.
to.
I mean, you're losing his like the years of his rookie contract. You're probably losing like 2-3 years. You got to, and if he's good, you're gonna have to pay him. So
Exactly. I mean, you get a 5th-year option, but what makes more sense is you use this pick on a weapon, on Dallas Turner, like we thought. Build up this defense, go all in with Kirk Cousins, and then if Kirk Cousins doesn't work out, you're gonna bottom out anyway, and you'll be picking in the top 5, and you get another quarterback in 2 years.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was mind-boggling. You had a lot of people trying to like explain it away, like, oh yeah, it makes sense, well, long-term thinking, blah blah blah. It's like, no, like, you don't sign a 36-year-old quarterback to a $150 million contract and be like, we're trying to think 4 years ahead.
Yeah,
It didn't make
doesn't
sense.
make any sense. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to belabor the point. I think we're all in agreement. This was a head scratcher of a pick and just never really made sense. So next, the Chicago Bears in their actual pick. So they were picking 9th overall. I thought they would go defense with Jerzan Johnny Newton. He actually ends up going in the 2nd round, which was pretty shocking. I thought he was either the best or second best defensive tackle in this class, but this 1st round was so offense heavy that I think we got to pick 15 before we got a defensive player, which is insane.
Yep.
So they actually end up going with Rome Odunze. And now that's why one of the reasons I'm like so high on Caleb Williams is you look at that offense and you're like, wow, there's talent at every single position. You're like, DeAndre Swift is a above average running back, I think is fair to say, even though he's bounced around. You got DJ Moore, this guy Odunze, you got Keenan Allen as like your number 3 receiver. If he's going to play in the slot, he's just a big slot receiver. You got Cole Kmet. They have a pretty good offensive line. I mean, it's a tough division. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're going to win the division, but I think that Williams is going to put up a lot of numbers. So, if you're not going to go defense, I think this pick made sense. I wasn't like shocked by the pick that they made. So.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I wasn't shocked by they went from Odunze.
Yeah,
I was shocked at how far Johnny Newton fell. That was shocking. I thought he was a 1st round guy for sure. Like top 10, probably not, but somewhere he was going to go in the mid 20s or late 30s, like in the early 30s. But to him to fall down to 36, like out of the 1st round was kind of shocking. But we'll see. We'll see how he pans out.
So offense heavy, man. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over to you for the 10th overall pick.
The 10th overall pick. So technically, I got this pick right, Khalid.
But you did.
The Vikings traded up. They traded up. They got their guy JJ McCarthy. I had in this slot the Jets picking Olu Fashanu, however you say his last name, and that was right. They just traded back one spot and took him later. So, this is where it gets a little complicated because now we have trades that we didn't foresee. But it kind of goes back to you then. Then you took JJ McCarthy at 11, and so we hit on those picks. I'm not sure why the Vikings felt they had to trade up one pick because it just seemed odd that they traded up one pick. Maybe they were worried the Broncos would jump them for JJ McCarthy. Maybe they were worried the Raiders would jump them.
Yeah,
but it sounded like the Raiders were all in on Thanks Jr. and we'll talk about that. But it sounded like they wanted to go up for him.
We'll come back to that because I'm here. Yeah. I heard otherwise after the draft.
Okay,
but yeah, we were both right on our individual picks here. They just flip flopped. I mean, for the Jets especially, a lot of people were like, "Oh, they're gonna draft Brock Bowers. They're gonna go for a wide receiver." It didn't make sense to me. They have weapons, and they saw in the first 4 snaps of the game the first 4 snaps of the season that Aaron Rodgers was under pressure. they upgraded the offensive line through free agency, and they're like, all right, we're going to add another possibly elite talent to this line to keep this 40-year-old guy from getting destroyed once again.
Exactly.
So I think, if I remember correctly, we were both aligned that it makes sense for them to go offensive line. And then for the Vikings, yeah, like we said, 11th overall. I think they traded up. Sean Payton was gloating after the fact that he baited them somehow. He's so full of shit. I'm so tired
Sean
of it.
Payton's so full of shit. Like, yeah, he's really full of shit, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess they traded up one spot. I don't remember what they gave up, but good for the Jets. They got an extra not first round pick. They got some extra picks just to drop back one spot, which is like an ideal thing. And it's not like they were going to take a quarterback, so it made sense for them.
Yep.
But yeah, we're pretty close. We're good so far. I think we only got one
So
pick
far.
wrong, and that was my fault. About
2 picks.
Calvin
We
Ridley.
got 2 picks wrong. 2 picks.
Okay. Oh yeah, there you go,
Johnny
Newton
Newton, too.
Yeah, dude, I'm
Yeah,
0 for 2 on these.
Well, I mean, technically, I messed it up too when I took Drake May. So
there you go. I like that you're taking accountability.
Yeah.
Over to you for the 12th overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, this was obvious. I felt that once all the quarterbacks were off the board, that the Denver Broncos were. I was reading it, like the Sean Payton was in love with Bo Nix. Like it was already like coming out that he was in love with Bo Nix, and Sean Payton's the arrogant type of dude who's like, I don't care what anyone else has graded this guy. If I like him, I'm going to take him. Right? Sean Payton's that kind of arrogant. So yeah, it made sense that they took Bo Nix here. They don't really have a quarterback. I don't know what their plan is for Bo Nix, but I'm not sure he's going to do too well. I'm not sure about that, right? Like I think he's the type of guy that maybe needed to sit a little bit. Maybe
he might still.
He might, but I don't know. I mean, you never know with Sean Payton. It's hard to say, right? But the way that Broncos offense was last year, and they didn't really make any improvements to that, I'm not sure if that's a recipe for success for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. They lost Jerry Jeudy, or they traded him away, even though he's not anything special, but that's just one less weapon for them. A lot of people, like you said, they had Bo Nix as a second round, third round talent, but it's just everyone's so desperate for a quarterback that, even if the Raiders ended up taking him, I wouldn't have loved it, but it would have made sense to me at that point to draft a quarterback. As far as Sean Payton, I mean, he's trying to say this guy's the next Drew Brees. He's like, that's what he's saying, right? That's what he's trying to.
Oh, God.
I don't know if he said it outright, but I mean, I like him as a quarterback. I think he's pretty athletic. He's older, which is good. I think is good. A lot of people see it as a negative. To me, it's a negative for Michael Penix because he's going to be 27 by the time he's starting.
Yeah.
But if Bo Nix is starting, halfway through the year, he's played out of probably like 5,000 snaps. He was in college for like 6 years. I think the same age as Justin Herbert, who's going into like his 4th year in the NFL. So
that's crazy.
Or 30, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's a positive for me because he's seen a lot more. It's not like Mitch Trubisky who's coming in with 10 starts under his belt. Like this guy probably has 50 starts between Auburn and Oregon. Yeah. So to me, it's a positive, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I see a lot of. I mean, just because they both went to Oregon, but I see a lot of Marcus Mariota in his game too. So.
Yeah, and Mariota was solid in Tennessee. I mean, in the right situation, he put up okay numbers. He was good in the red zone. He's dynamic. But yeah, he lost his job to Ryan Tannehill. So obviously not that great. But yeah, I think in a normal year, this guy would have been a second round pick. But it's just a weird quarterback year. This is the 5th quarterback that's taken in the first 12 picks. So very, very odd. All right, so we'll jump into my guys, the Raiders, the 13th overall pick. So I thought Michael Penix was going to be available here. And I think if the Falcons didn't do their thing, he probably would have been available. He's also another guy similar to Bo Nix that he probably is a 2nd or 3rd round talent. But you can find a franchise quarterback in the 2nd round. They had Derek Carr for 9 years as their franchise quarterback. Got Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. Dak Prescott's 4th round pick. It goes on and on. He ends up obviously going 9th to the Vikings or 8th, whatever it was. And they end up drafting Brock Bowers. Sorry, not the Vikings, the Falcons. This shocked me. I will have to say, I had done going into this draft, I want to say 15 mock drafts for the Raiders on Just Blog Baby. It never even crossed my mind to draft Brock Bowers. I did a couple, like, I was messing around. I'm like, I'm going to take best player available drafts just to mix it up. I had them taking, Keon Coleman or Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, whatever, like in the top, at this 13, just because they're the best player available. I never had this guy on my radar. He didn't do a top 30 visit for him. There was no rumors. He just I just got the notification from Adam Schefter. The Las Vegas Raiders are selecting Georgia tight end. I was like, what the? I was flabbergasted. Before I give my thoughts on the pick, what did you think of it when they announced this pick?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting. I was like, are the Raiders that talented that they could afford to go best player available? I thought they were gonna like target something on the defense, right? Like cornerback or something like that. I'm surprised they went tight end. But you can understand it, right? They play in a division with like that has Travis Kelce, so they're like, oh, we got it. Maybe we want to go, for a good tight end. And it's a little. I guess it's some Raider fans were probably surprised because they had drafted like Michael Meyer,
The year
in the
before.
second round.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're like that, and that guy was supposed to be a really good tight end, and maybe he hasn't panned out, but maybe who knows? Maybe they're still not done doing Patriots West out there, going with the double tight end sets.
They are definitely not Patriots West anymore. I'm not going to spend too much time on here because I could talk about this all day, but I'll give you a couple reasons why I like the pick. I do like the idea of going best player available early on because you want to maximize your first round talent. You also don't want to think, what do we need right now, April 2024. If this guy works out, if he's everything that we think he is, he's going to be a Raider for 10, 15 years, right?
Yep.
People are talking about this guy being a special weapon. He's the next Travis Kelce, blah, blah, blah. So, all right, potential Hall of Famer at a position, not a position of need, but a position of just being the best player available. And then, he's not a traditional tight end, so they can line him up out wide, line him up in the slot. And at this point, you can't get a quarterback. You're not going to draft Spencer Rattler in the first round. So I'm okay with it, going best player available and then going need later on in the draft where you're kind of filling in gaps and stuff like that. So
yeah, yep. But the Raiders didn't draft a quarterback, right? At all.
No, they did not. So we're going with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell this year.
I guess you always have next year.
Exactly, right? I mean, that's the thing is I preferred this versus, and they tried to trade up. All the beat writers say they tried to trade up. None of those teams wanted to trade back because they wanted their quarterbacks, which makes sense, right? They're all quarterback needy. So it just worked out where they end up. And who knows?
Do you think they were trying to trade up for JJ McCarthy? Because it seems like they probably could have swung a deal for JJ.
They weren't that high on him. Like according to, again,
that's what I was reading. They weren't high on JJ McCarthy, right?
According to Athletic beat writers, they said even if Penix was available, they weren't going to take him at 13.
Oh, really? Wow. So who were they trying to trade up for? They were trying to trade up for one of the top three.
Yeah, for Jaden Daniels or Drake May, and obviously, without giving up everything that you have for one of these guys, you probably wouldn't have made that deal. And then if you're Washington, you're like, what's the point? We don't have a quarterback.
Yeah. I still don't have a quarterback. I'm coming out with no quarterback here.
Yeah, exactly. So like we were so bad, we ended up in the top 3. So let's take advantage and get this guy that might be our quarterback for, again, 10, 15 years. Just keep rolling. So yeah, enough on the Raiders.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Over to you for 14th overall.
Another pick we hit on over here. It was obvious Saints needed a lineman, and they went to Talisi Fuaga, and it just made sense, right? It was just a no-brainer pick. They need offensive line help. You saw what happened to Derek Carr last year, and so they just took the best available offensive lineman here.
Yep. Yeah, this is. I think that they also had the Raiders looking at a right tackle as well, but the Saints ended up. This guy, I was happy if he would end up on the Raiders as well. But it made sense, like we said in our mock, that Derek Carr almost died probably 2-3 times last year. So you got to keep this guy upright and protect him, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. So over to 100%. me for pick 15. I thought it was going to be Cooper DeJean. He ends up going 40th overall to the Eagles, which was surprising that he dropped. But again, just an offensive heavy first round. They end up taking a guy that it was kind of debatable between him and Dallas Turner. as the best edge defenders in the draft, and they end up drafting Laiatu Latu. And the concerns around him, the injury history, the medical retirement, his length, the size, blah, blah, blah. But if he's nasty, he's nasty. And they end up with it. They struggled defensively last year, so they get a great piece on their defensive line. You think about him next to like DeForest Buckner, and all of a sudden you have a pretty good defense going down in Indianapolis. But yeah, I was really surprised that Cooper DeJean fell as far as he did.
Yeah, same. I was surprised by that. Not surprised by the pick the Colts made. He feels like he has a lot of qualities of what's the guy that they had? Darius Leonard, Shaquille Leonard. He changed his name, right? Shaquille Leonard.
Yeah, Shaquille Leonard. But he's a middle linebacker.
Yeah, but he was they started him off as an edge rusher, so he has a lot of like edge rushing qualities like that they're looking for. That's what, like, in terms of the edge rushing piece of it. But I think he was able to move into middle linebacker after that. But
I thought you were going to say Dwight Freeney, but that works too.
Dwight Freeney, no. Dwight Freeney is one of a kind, man. I'm not going to put that on this kid.
Yeah, with his crazy spin move.
You can't replicate that. Anyways, over to the Seahawks. I think this is where our mock draft starts to fall. This is where we start to falter a little bit. I had the Seahawks going Graham Barden here. He ends up going, I believe, 26th to the Buccaneers.
Still a first round pick.
Still a first round pick. Sorry, 26th. And then the Seahawks, they decide to address the other side of the line and go Byron Murphy, who's probably the consensus, top defensive lineman. Makes sense. They needed help on both sides of the trenches, and Byron Murphy here comes in, gives them a defensive tackle that they haven't had in a while. And so it makes sense. And I think they addressed their offense. Like, they're pretty good on the line. They probably addressed it later in the draft.
Yeah, we thought Murphy was going to go to not St. Louis, the Rams later on in the draft, which, or later on in the first round.
I think only like a few picks later we had him going.
Yeah, exactly. And then Barton, I think we had him as a pick. I don't know if we had him in the first round. Oh no, obviously you did.
I took him here because he took him. And he still went in the first round, just 10 picks later.
So there we go. We're not too far off.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll jump into the next four. So this is where I thought Latu was going to go. So just a couple picks later, 17th overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had, I believe, like the 20th ranked defense. So I thought they were going to go hard on the defense. They ended up doing that later in the draft. But again, the Vikings trade up. They were very aggressive. They end up picking Dallas Turner, who we thought was going to be a top 10 pick. So this is great value for them to get potential top 5 talent in a normal draft in 17th overall. So I think with Minnesota, they know they have a good team. They're aggressive because they thought they had possibly a division winning team if Kirk Cousins stays around, at least a wild card team. So they're probably like, let's go all in, let's trade up, let's maximize our first round picks. And I think this is a great pick for them. And then it just makes sense. He looks like the prototype edge rusher in the modern NFL. And I think it's just it's a great pick for them.
Yep.
And, we kind of had it right. We had an edge rusher
kind of
going 17th overall. And instead it's just a different guy. So over to you for pick 18.
Yes. This is in our mock. Brock Bowers slides a little bit, and this is where I had him going to the Bengals. But obviously, the Raiders took him 5 picks earlier, and so the Bengals went with Demarius Mims, who I think we had maybe just like 7-8 picks later, going 25th to Green Bay. Makes sense, they're looking for offensive line help. They don't really have a long-term plan. I think at left tackle, right tackle, they don't really have long-term plans there. So getting a guy of Demarius Mims' potential makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
A guy that can kind of groom in and bring him in, and who knows, maybe he's the next Trent Williams. We don't know, right? But I think he has that potential, right? He has that upside, and so it makes sense to take a guy like that here.
This is now the second year that Joe Burrow hasn't finished a season because of injury, and this is for some reason, no matter how much money they spend on the offensive line, they just can't protect this guy. So there's something going on there. So it makes sense for them to invest a first round pick in an offensive lineman to try to keep this guy upright, just because we know what he's capable of when he's healthy, but you just got to keep him healthy. So as we mentioned, So 19th overall, we had Byron Murphy going to the LA Rams. He's off the board just a couple picks earlier to the Seattle Seahawks. They still end up going defensive line, and they draft what's his name, Jared Verse out of Florida State. So again, we were right in the idea that they would go, defense or edge guy, or at least defensive line. They lose Aaron Donald. They have Kobe Turner, who's was in the running for defensive rookie of the year last year. They had an okay defense, but it makes sense that they go a guy that can probably play inside too if needed. He's kind of a bigger edge than like Dallas Turner. He's more of a hand in the dirt type dude than a stand-up guy like Turner. So we, at least the logic was right, and we were right in that aspect. So over to you for pick 20.
Yeah, so pick 20 here. I had the Steelers going with Terry and Arnold. I thought they'd address cornerback here. They chose to address their line situation. I think Terry and Arnold goes. He goes to Detroit. I think at like pick 27.
Yeah, 24th
like that.
overall.
I think 24th. Yeah. That's right. They traded up for him, and so he goes to Detroit. Great fit for him there. And then the Steelers here take Troy Fatanu.
Yeah, Fatanu. That's right.
Fatanu. Okay. God, man, these Samoans and their last names, man, they're tripping me up.
They're just phonetic. Just sound them out. I know they're long, but just sound them out. There's no it's not like Polish with
that's true. That's fair. That's fair.
Or whatever
like
it is,
random silent letters in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, this makes sense for the Steelers, right? They always add to their line where they can. They have a good offensive line. They just add another talented guy there. Not sure. He's probably a long-term starter for them at guard. I think he could play tackle as well. So he's a versatile offensive lineman. Makes sense, for their quarterback of the future, which is not going to be Russell Wilson.
Maybe Justin Fields.
Let's see. Yeah. I don't know what the Steelers are doing, but at least they got an offensive lineman to protect whoever it's going to be.
Yeah, he played left tackle for Washington, but can play guard, like you said. I mean, that's kind of usually how it goes, right? But yeah, I think my thought, I think they also in the second round picked an offensive lineman, and it just kind of made sense. Just if you are going to go with Russell Wilson, let's protect him. If we're going to go with Justin Fields as our quarterback of the future, let's protect him. And it just makes sense to draft in the trenches. So speaking of Troy Fatanu, I had him going 21st to the Miami Dolphins. He ends up going the pick before to the Steelers, and they end up drafting Chop Robinson out of Penn State, edge rusher, defensive end, outside linebacker, whatever it is. My thought was they only gave up, I think, 30 sacks last year, which is pretty good. My thought was, let's keep protecting Tua. Let's keep this guy. You can play him at right tackle, so he's protecting Tua's blind side. I think the logic was sound. But then when I saw this pick, I remembered that Jalen Phillips tore his Achilles halfway through the season. Bradley Chubb tore his ACL, I think, like the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, they lost Van Ginkel. I think he's in Arizona, maybe, or Philly. I'm not sure.
Somewhere like that.
So they're just losing outside linebackers, DNs. They're dropping like flies. So it makes sense for them to go get, Chop Robinson now. This is the third or fourth edge rusher off the board in like the last 10 picks. So it makes sense. They need to improve that defense. They need to keep getting more athletic on that defense, because I think the offense with Mike McDaniel, with the weapons that they have, I think should be fine on its own. So let's build up the defensive side of the ball. Over to you for pick 22.
Yep. So I had the Eagles taking Quinnen Mitchell, and that's exactly what they do here. They take Quinnen Mitchell. A little surprised that they preferred Quinnen Mitchell over Terry and Arnold, considering both were on the board, but they must have liked the talent of Quinnen Mitchell, and it was obvious that the Eagles needed help in the backfield. So they made a pick that makes a lot of sense. And the Eagles had a great draft, by the way. I think it's one of the best drafts.
Yeah. They went.
As always.
I know, right? It's like them, the Eagles, the Steelers, the Ravens. There's just teams where you're like, man, how did they get that guy?
Exactly. You're like, no one else wanted this guy, right?
Yeah, the Eagles, 20 picks later, they get Cooper DeJean, who we thought was a top 15 pick. So it's Quinnen Mitchell, he has everything, like physically, he looks the part. He's tall, long, lean. They needed a defensive back. They needed major help back there. They had one of the worst pass defenses in the league. So makes sense. They already have the D line. They spent I don't know, the past 3-4 first round picks on defensive linemen or pass rushers. So yeah, makes sense for them to go here. For me, so this the pick 23 overall, we thought it was going to be the Vikings. They of course trade up with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I had them picking Jackson Powers Johnson, who ends up going in the second round, pick 44 to the Raiders. I knew it was the Raiders. I just didn't remember what exact pick it was. I love this kid, man. He's the consensus number one center in this draft. He's probably going to play guard for the Raiders. I feel like anybody that plays center or guard can usually play center. It's just, that's kind of interchangeable. It's not that much different in terms of the logistics of the position. He's incredible. Won a ton of awards, was one of the best offensive linemen in the country. So I'm excited for him to be a Raider, and he's probably going to start at center for them in a couple years once Andre James moves on. But the actual pick, Brian Thomas to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They get their Calvin Ridley replacement. He's a little bit of a different receiver than Ridley. I feel like he's bigger. He's a more physical guy. He's going to be a nice complement to Christian Kirk as that like speedy slot receiver. And it makes sense, right? The clock is sort of ticking on Trevor Lawrence as we know he's good. Is he great is the question. Can he be great with the right weapons around him, with the right, situation, whatever it might be. So I thought the pick made sense for them, for Jacksonville. But I'm glad the Raiders got a guy that we thought was going 23. We got him 20 picks later. So
yeah. No, I really like Brian Thomas, and I think I had him going to the Bills because he fell in our draft a little bit. But yeah, he's a good pickup for the Jaguars. So 24th, I had the Cowboys going J.C. Latham, who went 7th overall to the Titans. We thought he was we weren't as high on him, I guess, as the NFL teams were. So we had him sliding down here, and the Cowboys do end up trading back here with the Lions, who jump up, take Tyrion Arnold. Makes sense. They were going to go cornerback, and I think then the Cowboys later take Tyler Guyton. So they needed offensive line help, and that was obvious. That's where they were heading. And I would assume if J.C. Latham was on the board, they would have not traded back and taken him.
Yeah. The logic was sound. Again, we knew what they needed. They lost Tyron Smith, so they needed. I don't know if they're moving Tyler Smith out to left tackle. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're going to do.
I think they're moving him to left tackle.
Okay.
So I think Guyton might be the right tackle.
Yeah. So it makes sense. What do you think about? Tyrion Arnold. You had him going a few picks earlier. So I'm pretty obviously you're pretty high on him. You thought he was a better pick, or you had him above Quinton Mitchell?
Yeah, I did. I think he's I like him. I like him as a cornerback. I think it's a good fit here for Detroit. They went up. They obviously need help at cornerback. I think they draft another cornerback later in this draft too. So
they did.
In this pass heavy NFL in this pass heavy world, you gotta have some DBs that can play, man. And Tyrion Arnold is a guy that could play. And I think they made the right pick there.
Yeah, I want to say a couple years back, I think it was a Justin Herbert draft. They had Jeff Okudah going like in the top 10. Didn't work out, so they're trying again with another first round pick at corner.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the next pick, 25th overall, I had the Green Bay Packers taking Amarius Mims. He is off the board. He went a few picks earlier to the Cincinnati Bengals, so looks like they took who they thought was the next best offensive tackle on the draft. Another guy we had a first round grade on, and that's Jordan Morgan. So again, the logic was sound. Now this is, I think, the 6th offensive tackle in the top 25. So it's all quarterbacks, tackles, and guys that, face off against the quarterback. So it's corners and edge rushers and stuff. So it's obviously that, like you said, this pass happy league where you need to protect the quarterback and get after the quarterback. And it made sense. You have great weapons on this team. You have potentially great quarterbacks. So let's keep him upright.
Yep, that makes sense. 26th here, I had the Buccaneers taking Jared Verse, who obviously went earlier in the draft to the Rams. And so I think the Buccaneers didn't take their Ryan Jensen replacement in Graham Pardon here. Great pick for them. Ryan Jensen, I think, retired. Did he retire? Or he was super banged up? I think he retired. Or did he go to another team? Yeah. And so Graham Pardon, can come and play center, guard, whatever you want him to play. He can play it. And he's going to be a pretty, solid piece for them, and probably a stable lineman for them for many years.
Now they have their franchise quarterback in Baker Mayfield.
Oh God.
So they got to protect him. Got to keep him upright. I know
Yeah.
he
Got to
took.
protect Baker, right? Yeah.
Yep, number one pick, man. Uh, I'm happy for him. He seems like he's kind of a dick, but
He's redeemed himself. Yeah, he redeemed himself a little bit.
yeah, yeah. I've changed my opinion on him. I'll say that.
I still think he's a prick.
You're not wrong, honestly.
I'll just say it. I still think he's a prick.
Yeah, but I feel like he got a raw deal in Cleveland, and I think that's one of the reasons I feel for him. Like he should still be there instead of Deshaun Watson. But
yeah.
Anyway, so 27th overall, the Arizona Cardinals. I had them taking Kool-Aid McKinstry, who ends up going 41st overall to the Saints. So not that far of a drop, just about 15 picks. And I know they had a bad pass defense last year, so you either draft a cornerback or you draft an edge rusher. And they end up taking Darius Robinson out of Missouri. And again, the logic was sound. They know they needed DBs. They drafted DBs in the second, third, fourth, and seventh rounds.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, I had to double check that. I was like, wow, they took 4 defensive backs out of, I think they had a ton of picks because of the Texans trade last year where they traded down.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which is where this second first round pick is from Houston. So yeah, again, the logic was sound, but they probably saw this guy, Darius Robinson, who had, I think, 10 sacks last year, and they as a team only had 30 sacks. So they were like bottom of the league. So they're like, all right, we need to get a pass rusher. And that's what they went out and did. And now this is, again, I think the 4th or 5th edge rusher in the second half of the first round. So
yeah.
Over to you, pick 28.
Yeah. I like the move for the Cardinals. I thought, this was a guy that the Niners could have taken later in the draft, or later in this round.
You guys love defensive linemen in the first round.
We love, and everyone talks about this guy like he's like kind of like similar to Eric Armstead, where he could kick inside or he could play outside. So great pick for the Cardinals. So here I had the Bills staying in their draft slot, taking wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. That who went, obviously earlier to the Jaguars. I think I picked was a 23. And then we have a trade here. Casey jumps up here for Xavier Worthy, who interesting pick. I think Kansas City is. I'm not sure what Kansas City is doing now. They're trying to go with these small, fast wide receivers, stretch the field and just let Mahomes gun it out. I guess is what their logic is. I'm not super high on Xavier Worthy. Some people love Xavier Worthy. He gives me John Ross vibes. I don't know. So yeah. I'm not a huge fan. He gives me John Ross vibes. I'm like, I don't know what Kansas City's doing, but hey, it's Andy Reid. He knows better than me, I guess.
So 2 comments on this one. The logic was sound. You thought Buffalo was going to get a big target, big wide receiver. They end up drafting Keon Coleman in the second round. So you had the correct temperature for this pick. You were right on that. As far as Xavier Worthy, I think everybody was talking about him going to Kansas City. We talked about it in our mock.
Yeah.
With that 32nd pick, he's either Tyreek Hill or John Ross, like you said.
Yeah. Which scares me, right? Like it's like
there's just so many of these type of dudes. The undersized, super fast guy that's running. He runs a 4.21, which is just bonkers. Like it's just
insane.
Watching him run just kind of boggles the mind. So you think at worst he's just gonna run go routes, and Mahomes is gonna take a 7-step drop and just throw it as far as he can and see what happens. But I think people forget how much of Tyreek Hill's game was just that run after the catch and his threat as on reverses or screens. Like,
yep. And Tyreek Hill's a bigger dude. He's a little slightly bigger built dude, right? Like maybe not height wise, but like in terms of girth, he's a little bigger guy, so he could take that contact.
He looks like a fire hydrant. Like he doesn't have a neck.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's super wide. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not quite as wide as
I think a better comp for Xavier Worthy might be Deshaun Jackson. Like that's probably his potential. Like that's if he gets to it, he's Deshaun Jackson.
More of like the long strider type. Like Deshaun Jackson was kind of long and lean. Like he wasn't going to break tackles the way Tyreek was. He's just going to run past everybody. So I get it. It makes sense. They didn't have that deep threat. They tried with MVS and they had Kadarius Toney, who they just didn't work out for them. So the pick makes sense. It's just
especially given what's going on with Rashee Rice too, right? So Makes sense.
Yeah, who got in trouble again.
Again,
So,
my goodness.
he might be looking at like 8-10 games for all this, for all the stupid shit he did. But yeah, the pick makes sense. But you're right to be skeptical. It's fair to be skeptical of these just super fast, maybe like one trick pony type dudes. So now we're jumping into the end of the first round. So last 4 picks. So 29th overall, I had the Detroit Lions picking Zach Frazier, who's an interior offensive lineman, because I know they needed interior offensive line help. They end up trading up. They take Terry and Arnold. And the Cowboys draft here, pick 29, and they draft Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. So you had them taking, was it Marius Mims and
JC Latham.
JC Latham, sorry, who, again, like you said, went 7th overall. So the logic was sound. You had them taking an offensive lineman. They end up taking an offensive lineman, or an offensive tackle, to be specific. I was off on the Lions. I thought they would go offensive line, but defensive back was just as big of a need, and maybe they'll, go out and spend some more money. And I want to say some of the other draft picks in this class were offensive linemen. So we were close. So we went back to back just to let you pick for the Niners.
Yes.
I had the Baltimore Ravens taking A.D. Mitchell out of Texas, 30th overall. He ends up going to the Colts in the second round. People made a big stink about it. Oh, why is he falling? Even the Colts GM went on some rant about, oh, this is bullshit that he fell, blah, blah, blah. It was this rant about like guys' draft stock falling for no reason. And
yeah, I mean, why is he mad about it? He got the guy he wanted.
I think he's just
trying to talk him up.
Yeah, virtue signaling, trying to like, big up this guy. Like, yeah, we got it. We got a first round talent in the second round because of whatever. Anyway, they end up taking Nate Wiggins, who we had going in the first round as well. This is another guy that is really fast. So he's the Xavier Worthy of the defensive backs. He also ran, I think, like a 4.26 or 4.27, something bonkers.
Yeah, he ran fast. He ran fast.
The concern on him is he's like 170 pounds. So
super skinny.
Yeah, that's the worry, right? Is can he hold up? Is he going to get bullied by Tyreek Hill? And somebody they have to worry about in the conference. Is he going to get bullied by Brian Thomas or some of these other bigger receivers? I mean, there's a long list, but it's Baltimore. I trust everything they do. They have plenty of reasons. They've given plenty of reasons for us to trust them. I thought they would go wide receiver. They only drafted one receiver in like the 4th round, which I think is a steal. They got Tez Walker out of North Carolina. But yeah, any thoughts on these 2 picks?
No, I mean, obviously, like the Cowboys, right? We thought linemen, they went linemen. In terms of the Ravens, I kind of see why they went defensive back. Like apparently, what's his name? Bo Sweeney was like calling teams. It's like, hey, take this guy. Like, take this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Take him. He's gonna be good. He's gonna be good. I don't trust me. He's a good player. So I think they were looking at both sides of the ball where they could add the best available player, and that's what they went. I think that's kind of their approach, right? There's always been their approach to take the best available player, not necessarily factored on need or anything like that, and take the most talented guy. And that's what they did with Nate Wiggins, who was the most talented guy on their board.
Yeah, he's probably going to start for them right away too. So
yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
All right, now you get to wrap us up.
Yeah, I'll wrap us up here. Okay, so I had the Niners going Jordan Morgan, who was taken earlier by the Green Bay Packers, and then the Niners go ahead and take Ricky Pearsall. When that pick happened, I'll tell you, call it. In my mind, I was like, "Oh crap! Does that mean we're trading Ayuk or Debo?" Like that was my first thought. I was like, "Oh crap! That means we might be trading one of those guys, right?" So I was.
I think that standpoint,
it could happen. I don't think it's going to happen this offseason. It might happen.
I want to say, if I'm remembering correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. There is a much lower cap hit if you trade Debo after June 1st.
Yes,
because of I think it's the new league year or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it has to do with like the bonus payout. So he gets his bonus payout and then his cap hits lower or something like that. I don't think they will do it this year. I think they'll wait till next year when it's even bigger. When it's like even lower, like they'll get more cap savings if they trade him next year versus June 1st this year.
I think you guys just have too many wide receivers now.
Yes, we do. We do. That is a problem. It's possible. If you look at the pick in a vacuum, that he's going to join Debo, Ayuk, great pick. You giving Brock Purdy more weapons, giving more chances to succeed. Parasol, like all the kind of things I've read about him, he could be like this Calvin Ridley type, Adam Thielen type player. Do the Niners need that? Not necessarily, but he could be that type of guy. And I think the Niners are doing something like in terms of like long term planning here, where they're like, okay, we're definitely not going to be able to pay Ayuk and Debo at some point, so we're gonna have to trade one of them. Let's get one of their replacements now. And great, he can probably jump in, contribute a little bit right away, keep our window open. And so I think that's kind of the thought process here. The Niners, I think, once they saw all their offensive linemen, possible guys that they wanted to take off the board, they kind of knew they were going wide receiver here. I think if any of those offensive linemen that went earlier were on the board, they would have definitely gone in that direction. But and then they had a chance to take a guy.
Seven offensive linemen, or
seven
offensive
offensive linemen,
tackles,
exactly.
maybe 10 offensive linemen total already
Almost
gone
10,
off the
yeah,
board.
10 total, so. Exactly. So it didn't make sense to go lineman at that point, and I guess you go with your best wide available player, and it was Parasol Jr. here. So
do you think they reached for him at this point?
I do think they reached slightly. By all accounts, but if you're listening to the chatter that day when they take him, like, people are like, oh, this is like fire pick, like Brandon Ayuk's texting John Lynch is a fire pick, and CJ Stroud's like, oh man, I wish the Texans taken him. So it sounds like the NFL was high on this guy, and so he might have gone sooner than expected. So maybe it's not as much of a reach as people were thinking, because he was projected late second round and he goes early first round or late first round, or maybe he was going early second round, right? Like maybe that's what was happening with him. I personally would have maybe preferred Lad McConkey over him, if we are going wide receiver, but that's because I feel like Lad McConkey is like a true replacement for one of those receivers versus Parasol. We don't know what we have in him just quite yet, but he could be there. He could be an Adam Thielen type dude, and that's fine. That works out.
I'll be honest, he was one of my favorite guys with all the
really?
mock drafts.
You liked him?
I loved this guy as I think he.
So this really pains you, Khalid, that the Niners are.
It's fine. The way I described him was, this guy's like a jacked up Hunter Renfrow. Like, he's a great route runner, and he's going to shake some DBs out of their boots, but he's also the dude that has like a 45-inch vertical, so he's going to go up and
athletic.
Get the ball.
He's athletic, yeah.
Super athletic. I think he ran like a 4.5, so not crazy long speed.
No, I think he ran slightly under 4.5, maybe like a 4.42.
Okay, so yeah. If I remember correctly, it wasn't the 40 wasn't that crazy, but it was all the other stuff, like the 3-cone drill, the what's the other one, the broad jump, the vertical jump, all the other stuff that he was doing. I thought was just like, he just lit it up. He has some crazy highlight reel catches. Maybe I just fell in love with that, but I was like, this dude's gonna
grab.
Yeah, that signature jump man. He's got the jump man on his jersey. It makes sense. He made a jump man type catch.
Oh wow, his 40 is 4.41, Khalid.
Oh, well, there you go. So he's faster than I thought, even.
And he put up 17 bench press reps, which is impressive for his size.
Yeah. So there was a lot to like about this dude. I think he suffered. I mean, he played with Jaden Daniels as a freshman in Arizona State. I deep dove into this guy's background. I was trying to find out what the deal was with him. He suffered in Florida. He played with Anthony Richardson, but Anthony Richardson didn't exactly light it up in college anyway. To Florida has been terrible the past few years. So I think he suffered from that. So his numbers aren't crazy, but just as like an athletic specimen, he has all the stuff that you look for. And I think about him in the Shanahan offense, where he's going to be deployed all over the place. He's going to be running the ball and doing all this thing. It does feel like a little bit of a reach, but he might just end up being like the best receiver in the draft, or maybe not better than the other guys, but he'll be
maybe a top 3 receiver in the draft. Yeah.
Maybe not receiver. We'll say like a weapon, because I think he's going to be used. Maybe not. He's not as like aggressive physically as Debo, where he's going to be trucking dudes, on a reverse. But he's got
a lot of Julian Edelman to his game too. Like, hate to compare him to another wide receiver.
I know. I was gonna say
because you remember Edelman used to run those like jet sweeps, things like that. He could do that. Like, yeah.
Just name wide receivers, bro. Wes Welker. Oh, he's got a little Adam Thielen to him.
Yeah, Adam Thielen, Ricky Prohl. We'll call him Ricky Prohl. Adam Thielen.
A little Wayne Krebet to his game.
There we go. Let's keep naming him. But honestly, if I had to settle on a comp for him, I think Calvin Ridley makes a lot of sense. Like, he could be Calvin Ridley-esque.
I can see that, and he was really good He still could be really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's bounced around a bit, but yeah.
Yep. All right,
All right.
let's wrap this up here, Carl. With the last pick I had Casey going Nate Wiggins, thought they needed cornerback help after trading L'Jarius Sneed. Thought they could also have gone wide receiver here, so they traded up, take Xavier Worthy. Nate Wiggins goes to the Ravens, and then the Panthers jump in here. They trade with the Bills and go Xavier Leggett. Not sure why they want this guy, but that's the guy they wanted. Given all the other wide receivers on the board, another possible reach here. But let's see how it pans out here for Bryce Young and the Panthers. They give him another weapon here to pair with Jonathan Mingo. They got Adam Thielen out there still, so maybe they were just looking for a burner type of dude, and that's what this guy is. He's a burner. So maybe it works out there.
Yeah, shout out Xavier Leggett for helping me go viral on Twitter. I posted his
yeah, dude, I saw that. My goodness,
6 million impressions. I'll take it.
Wow,
for his
his
little post draft.
His accent is tough. This is just straight country.
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard him talk in another interview, and it wasn't that thick of a country accent. I think he was just like so hyped, so excited that he was talking fast.
It just came out. Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to him for that. I think in terms of the reasoning for the pick is they just needed like physical talent and speed and explosion at receiver. Like last year they had the slowest wide receiver group ever. Yeah. You had Adam Thielen, who's, probably runs like a 6 flat now. Just, once upon a time he was explosive, but he's just not. Flat. Yeah, you just see him run. You're like, man, this guy cannot be a number 1 wide receiver anymore for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. He put up numbers, man. He somehow put up numbers still.
It was empty garbage time stats.
Empty garbage numbers for sure.
He was,
and that's why I thought they might have gone AD Mitchell here, because they were looking for a burner.
That was the other thing. Is it was surprising. I think they wanted to give him maybe a bigger target. I mean, you can't really go wrong. I mean, I think whatever traits that they were looking for. The way I heard it described was like, all right, they want to get him like a DK Metcalf type, like a physically overpowering wide receiver that has like the catch radius. So I thought, all right, maybe Keon Coleman, whatever, but maybe this guy is better after the catch.
Keon was slow.
Yeah, so they wanted Keon, I think he ran like a 4.7 or something.
Yeah,
but
he's a big super dude. Slow. He's a big dude.
So makes sense. And yeah, shout out Xavier Leggett. So I think for the most part, we did pretty good. Obviously
we weren't too far off.
You're not going to bat 1,000. There's a lot of drafts, trades and stuff we couldn't account for. But I think for the most part, this was a draft where a lot of teams went chalk, kind of. They went with there wasn't a lot of crazy movement. Nobody jumped up, gave up 3 first-round picks to go into the top 3 like the Niners did or the Rams or whatever. Teams just kind of, they went chalk, went with who we expected. So not many surprises, but it was a fun draft, and we got to do this again next year, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun. It was a lot of fun to do this. So we'll do it again for sure next year. Maybe we'll do an NBA one. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe we'll just do a lottery NBA. Maybe. Well, this NBA draft's kind of boring. Maybe
I will say, with you and your pronunciation issues, I would love to have you on camera. Try to say some of these European guys' names.
Oh god,
I don't know if you'd want to do that.
Maybe that's the pod value there, right? Me trying to pronounce this foreign player name.
There you go. Well, thank you guys for checking us out. We appreciate it. Let us know what you thought of the pod in the comments or in the feedback form on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching to this podcast. You see the stuff on the screen, anchorfm.com/4040 Vision Pod, or on all the major social media platforms at 4040 Vision Pod. All right. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Salman.
Peace.